I recently had an opportunity to sit down with David Daleiden, the man behind the undercover Planned Parenthood videos, for an in-depth discussion of his efforts to expose that organization's alleged baby body parts business. I found the conversation to be very enlightening, as I hope you will, especially considering the recent politically shady indictment by a Texas grand jury against him and his associate, Sandra Merritt. We refrain from using any graphic video, but the conversation still may not be appropriate for all ages. However, after viewing this interview, I urge you to pray for David, Sandra, and their attorneys, and that God would continue to expose the evil of abortion for what it truly is. Thank you very much and welcome. I'm Father Mitch Paquin. Welcome to EWTN Live, where we bring you guests from all over the world. Our guest tonight has been working to bring to light the illegal and very immoral activities of a government-funded organization that sells human beings either in whole or in parts, like they were stolen cars. And so far, it has done a great deal to change the public discourse and attitudes on abortion. So please welcome from the Center for Medical Progress, Mr. David Daleiden. David? It's very much an honor to have you here with us. Thank you for doing what you've done. Obviously, last year we watched the videos come out, and I thought it was brilliant. They just kept it dripping on out. It just was a regular turning on and off of the faucet and letting people digest the work that you did. What got you to do this in the first place?
Certainly. So thank you for having me on, Father. Well, so my story in some ways goes back my entire life. I am the child of a crisis pregnancy situation. My parents got pregnant with me their junior year of college and gave birth to me their senior year, and got married after graduation. So really from the earliest times, I've always grown up with I just always grew up with the really strong understanding that, sometimes people get pregnant and have kids in less than completely planned or completely perfect situations. But at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing shameful about that. And now is always a good time to welcome a new little person into the world.
From having spoken to a lot more people than you over the past few decades, because you didn't have that many more decades. But my general impression is that most of the human race was unplanned. And so this is sort of fitting into one of the most basic patterns of human history. And it's just that now people are being ornery about it.
It is an interesting marketing gimmick for Planned Parenthood, right? To convince people that there's a problem or a better way to do things, and then sell the product that we've got to have it planned, all planned, nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm delighted for my very much unplanned brother, who is 14 years younger than I. It's been a delight to have. But because of this is what motivates you, because you have an interior understanding based on your own life, like so many do. Tell us at this point, what is Planned Parenthood and its structure? What is it that is the inner workings of this organization?
Sure. So Planned Parenthood is the biggest abortion provider in the entire country. all across America, there is no single other entity that does more abortions than Planned Parenthood. They're anywhere from 40 to 50% of the total abortion market now.
In this country?
In this country, in America, yeah, they're doing easily. The estimate used to be about a third, but increasingly with the independent providers closing down, they're closer to 50% at this point. And Planned Parenthood is, their official full name is the Planned Parenthood Federation of America, or PPFA. They're organized in this federation kind of structure, almost like a franchise, like a McDonald's or a Burger King, where they have regional groupings, which are called affiliates, which are all organized as their own corporations in different states. Sometimes an affiliate is a multi-state affiliate. Those are the regional groupings of the Planned Parenthood clinics, which include their surgical abortion centers. And then all of the affiliates together, there's 59 of them, make up the overall organization. And that's a structure that dates all the way back to their founder, the racist and eugenicist Margaret Sanger. And it's
so that folks understand, Margaret Sanger was very proud that she spoke 5 times to the Ku Klux Klan Women's Association and received great welcome there, as well as said, or I believe, no, she wrote that black people are a weed that must be eliminated. So that's why you say that she was
correct.
racist.
And she also, if you go and read the archives of her writings, and she blamed the Holocaust on overpopulation. She was a very misanthropic person, had a very negative view of humanity. Which many people, around the turn of the century, the early 1900s, first real 50 years of the 20th century or so, had a very misanthropic view of humanity, and a kind of a conviction that human beings in general are more liabilities than assets to society. But yeah, so that was Margaret Sanger, and the current corporate structure of Planned Parenthood actually still comes from her. And you might conclude kind of darkly that there's a certain advantage that gives them, that they can hide behind all these multiple corporate veils. It's lots of different structures to funnel everything through, and certainly it's been to their advantage even with the baby parts issue.
That's been because they'll deny any kind of partnership with this because it's these small affiliates. However. And just along the lines of the racist thing, so that folks also understand, 60% of their clinics are in African-American neighborhoods, even though African-Americans are only 12% of the population. It's 5 times what you would expect if it was distributed evenly, but they're not. So now, given that structure, what is it that you then saw as your task?
Sure. So a couple of things. So first of all, one of the primary tasks that I felt that we had at CMP, embarking on a long-term, in-depth investigative journalism study of Planned Parenthood's involvement in harvesting and selling aborted baby parts, was that I wanted to make sure that this project would document and illustrate that really clearly for the public in a way that would not be so easily deniable by Planned Parenthood. Previously, in a lot of similar undercover sting type situations, Planned Parenthood's strategy has been to scapegoat the initial bad actor. They scapegoat that one worker or even that one clinic manager. It's just a bad apple. It's just a bad barnacle on the boat. Scapegoat them, fire them, claim that it was an anomaly, an isolated incident, and then move on. And in order to really
truly throw them under the proverbial bus,
under the proverbial
just
bus,
to let them know, yeah, they did it, but we didn't do it.
Exactly. And so when it comes to a corporate entity like Planned Parenthood, though, and not just any old business, but a really large kind of Leviathan, national-sized organization that has national influence and name recognition, if you really want to show that they as an institution are responsible for something, you have to go to a higher level, I think, than just the local level. You have to go all the way to the top. And so from the very beginning, we wanted to make sure that this project would, and that our investigators would go deep enough into the abortion industry in order to have interactions with top level Planned Parenthood officials and with people with senior leadership positions in the organization who could actually speak for Planned Parenthood as a whole, what their policies are, what their intentions are, what their business model is. That makes it a more complicated endeavor. It means that you have to move a little more gradually, and it's going to be more longer term. But I think it was totally worth it, and it paid off.
In other words, making sure that you don't get the people they'll throw under the bus, but you're looking for the people who are actually driving the bus.
Exactly. The bus drivers who are too big to fail, as it were.
Right. And so, how did you do this? What did you do in terms of, setting? How did you get involved or insinuate yourself into this circumstance? Then, I mean, I don't think I would be able to just walk in and do that. I wouldn't know what to do. What did you plan? How did you get into talking to these folks?
Definitely. So one of the best pieces of advice that I got early on, and is actually kind of a logical conclusion about the issue of fetal tissue trafficking specifically, is that it's not something that you could go in through the front door, so to speak, to get information on. So you couldn't just dress somebody up in a lab coat, send them through the front door of the Planned Parenthood clinic, go up to the receptionist desk and say, hey, I'd like to buy a liver, or I'd like to buy a brain. It's something of this magnitude has to be, you're going to have to go through the back door instead, or you're going to have to go to where the leadership of Planned Parenthood actually is. And we had a little bit of a head start with this, because in the past 5 years or so, there's been several explicitly for-profit biotech companies that have started up with the explicit purpose of partnering with Planned Parenthood and other abortion clinics to go into the clinics, harvest the body parts, and then turn around and sell them.
So it's not just one company that does the body parts. There are a number of them.
Correct. There's a number of them. And so several of these companies, several of these startups were popping up from 2010 to 2015. And so we were able to take a look at sort of the more open of those, or the more kind of public of those, and start to model ourselves after them. One of them is called STEM Express, and they're probably the biggest the biggest biotech company that has partnered with the most Planned Parenthood clinics over the past several years to harvest their fetal tissue and turn around and sell it. And so STEM Express actually kind of provided our model, and we studied them pretty carefully. We read their materials on their website. We looked at their business model. We listened to interviews with their officers. And so we constructed basically a test company we called it Biomax Procurement Services, almost like Office Max, but Biomax for biological body parts. And so that was our test company, basically modeled as a biotech startup company similar to STEM Express that wanted to partner with Planned Parenthood abortion clinics in order to go in, dissect the dead babies after the abortions, harvest the body parts, and then turn around and sell them for experimentation. And it was really astounding to see how happy Planned Parenthood and their fellow travelers in the abortion industry were to welcome just one more player to the table, when all we did was just follow this almost kind of goofy model of a startup company, just a handful of people who, we think abortion is great and we want to sell baby parts. And that was really it was almost that simple in a way, that it didn't seem controversial or unusual to all the different people that we spoke with within the abortion industry. They were happy to, and they were familiar with it. They said, we've had a company like that for the past 10 years at my clinic, and they're great. And it came very naturally when we followed that model.
We have a video clip from what you've done. It details, not in a visually graphic way, this story of the harvesting of baby parts. Let's take a look at that, if you would.
And to me, that's a kind of a specious little argument, and I wouldn't object to asking Ian, who's our surgeon who does the cases, to use an iPass at that gestational age in order to increase the odds that he was going to get an intact specimen. I'd say a lot of people want liver, and for that reason,
Most providers will do this case under ultrasound guidance, so they'll know where they're putting their forceps.
I'll mention this to Ian in terms of how he feels about using a less crunchy technique to get more whole specimens.
We've been very good at getting parts on liver because we know that so I'm not going to crush that part. I'm going to basically crush below, I'm going to crush above, and I'm going to see if I can get it all intact.
Sometimes, if someone delivers before we are able to see them for procedure, then we are intact.
I literally have had women come in and they'll go to the OR and they're back out in 3 minutes. And I'm going, what's going on? Oh yeah, the fetus was already in the vaginal canal whenever we put her on stirrups. It just fell out.
Oh yeah, I mean if you had intact cases, which we've done a lot, so we sometimes ship those back to our lab in its entirety. Tell the lab it's coming. So you don't open the box. Oh God.
In the cases of when it's mattered, the physicians also need an intact specimen. They can make it happen.
Right.
So we just need to figure out how that we can do this, under our project needs.
Federal abortion ban is a law, and laws are up to interpretation. So if I say on day one I do not intend to do this, what ultimately happens doesn't matter.
So that's where we have to do a little bit of training with the providers on making sure they didn't crush.
For example, so I had 8 cases yesterday, and I knew exactly what we needed, and I kind of looked at the list, and I said, all right, this 17-liter has 8 lambs, and this. So I knew which were the cases that were probably more likely to yield what we needed, and I made my decisions according to that too. So it's worth having a huddle at the beginning of the day, and that's what I do.
If we alter our process and we are able to obtain intact fetal cadavers, it's all just a matter of line items.
This still is, whenever I hear them say fetal cadavers, I picture babies. And from what they're talking about, that they just sort of come out whole, I would assume that those babies are still alive then. That's what we call being born. And that they are using those children who are born, and even by the horrifically immature and evil standards of Roe versus Wade, if the child is out of the womb, by Roe v. Wade, it is considered a person. And they're harvesting these persons. Am I correct?
That's exactly right. So the business of baby parts trafficking presents certain practical problems that it's easiest to solve if you resort to methods of abortion and other associated practices of cutting corners in the whole human tissue donation area that are flat out illegal. So if most of the research that's done most of the experimentation that's done on aborted fetal organs is some type of stem cell research or some kind of other biological tinkering, where ultimately what they're wanting is body parts that are as fresh and as intact as possible. You need them fresh because you need the cells to still be alive and still have some amount of viability so that you can create cell cultures from them or whatever you want to do with them. And you also need the tissue to be in general it needs to maintain its integrity so that you haven't destroyed all of the valuable stem cells or whatever else is inside of them. So it creates these huge incentives for the body parts to come out as intact as possible. And really the best way to do that is if you have a completely intact fetus delivered. And this is something that multiple abortion doctors said to CMP investigators while we were undercover, is that they would even joke about it sometimes that, the best thing for you would be if we could just induce labor and deliver the fetus right there for you, huh? And
what did you say to that question?
We smiled and nodded. I mean, I hate to, not to be flippant, but I mean that we played along. I mean, you heard Kate Dyer, was one of the people in that series of in that highlight reel clip that was just played. Kate Dyer is the CEO of STEM Express, which is the company that has been the closest with Planned Parenthood in the business of fetal tissue harvesting. STEM Express's medical director is actually Dr. Ronald Berman, who is an abortion doctor for Planned Parenthood in Northern California. So the ties are very, very deep. And she said right there in that clip that sometimes they get completely intact cases. Cases that is the term of art in the abortion industry for the entire procedure, for the whole abortion. She says, yeah, when we get an intact case, we ship that back to our laboratory in its entirety, so they can handle all of the dissections and everything specifically according to their own specifications there at the STEM Express lab. So absolutely, I mean, that's kind of that's one of the darkest places that baby parts harvesting goes to, is that the practical parameters that business creates, it creates a situation where you're much more likely to have born alive infants, you're more likely to have infanticide, you're more likely to have
Can I use another term for that? Again, using the standards of Roe v. Wade, it's murder.
Absolutely.
And if those children are born alive, by the standards, as low a bar as it might be, that Roe v. Wade sets, those standards mean that is murder. Am I far off?
No, that's correct. And on a federal level, the Born Alive Infants Protection Law, which has been on the books for well over 12 years now, that makes it very clear that any time that you have a born alive, a fetus born alive during an abortion is defined as a born alive infant at any gestational age, if there is a recognizable heartbeat, movement of voluntary muscles, pulsation of the umbilical cord, or respiration. It's considered a born alive infant that has to be given the same rights and protections under law that we would give to any other newborn infant in any other situation. And you heard Dr. Ginda, who's the vice president and medical director of Planned Parenthood of the Rocky Mountains in that clip as well, say that sometimes their second trimester patients actually deliver before the abortion doctor even gets a chance to see them. And this is something that again, our investigators learned from many abortion providers, Planned Parenthood and otherwise, that in the practice of second trimester abortion, this is not an unusual occurrence. Now, it doesn't necessarily happen every day, but if you're doing a lot of second trimester abortions and you're doing lots of procedures of those per day and week after week, it's not unusual that every month or so you'll have one or two born alive cases, just based on the anatomy of different patients and the way that they respond to the preoperative procedure preparations. And it's not unheard of to have fetuses delivered entirely intact, and if they haven't used any feticide, which they don't use in an organ harvesting case because that poisons the tissues and kills the stem cells.
But a feticide means that you give them some
poison.
Chemical. You poison the child while it is inside the womb.
That's
right?
correct. That's correct.
And the companies that buy these babies don't want the poison in there.
That's correct, and you can go on our website at cmp.org. We have a document vault section that includes some primary source documentation from within the abortion industry and within companies like STEM Express, and you can even see in the order forms and in the order lists from their own files that people are requesting no digoxin or no dig. Digoxin is normally used as a heart medication for older people, but when it's injected into a fetus, it kills them. It acts as a poison. And specifically, they're told to make sure that is not part of the abortion procedure when they're trying to get intact body parts and intact fetuses.
Sometimes I get criticized because I have been critical of President Obama. The reason I was first critical of him was when he was a state senator in Illinois. There was a case actually two cases of children born alive, and the nurse put the babies in a plastic bag with formaldehyde and suffocated them because the abortion failed and the child was alive. And the Illinois representatives voted for a law to save children who were born alive because, again, they shouldn't even had to do that because even by those low standards of the evil decision Roe v. Wade, they should have had the right to life. And Barack Obama State Senator Barack Obama did not vote. He just said present. Now, if you can't vote to save such a child, what moral core do you have?
That's correct.
And it's not only him, but now these are the perps who are doing this. We want to take a look at one more video clip about, where they talk about not only are they doing such evil to these children, but they're making profits from them. Let's take a look.
Hello, I'm Cecile Richards, President of Planned Parenthood Federation of America. I want to be really clear. The allegation that Planned Parenthood profits in any way from tissue donation is not true.
I feel like there's clinics out there that have been burnt that feel like they're doing all this work for research and it hasn't been profitable for them.
Really?
No, do you feel that way? Sorry, that was.
Oh, I thought you were saying that.
Yeah, no. Okay, good. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't see that either.
A company like this that wants to give our organization money for the tissue, like, I think that that's a valid exchange, and that's okay.
And if they can do a little better than break even and do so in a way that, seems reasonable, they're happy to do it.
I think the per item thing works a little better just because we can see how much we can get out of it.
If we alter our process and we are able to obtain intact fetal cadavers, it's all just a matter of line items.
Well, why don't you start by telling me what you're used to paying? Well, in negotiations, the person who throws out the figure first is at a loss, right? So I want a Lamborghini. That's how I want a Lamborghini.
Don't we all, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that would definitely get people to say, I'll give you for the same price and I'll do that. So I say, okay, what are you looking to supply today?
We have independent colleagues who generate a fair amount of income doing this.
There's Dr. Deborah Nucatola, who is in that video. She's the Senior Director of Medical Service for Planned Parenthood Federation of America. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So this is not somebody who is, a nurse or other worker around there who's, doing something on the side. This is one of the bus drivers.
Exactly. The Senior Director of Medical Services is basically the top doctor at Planned Parenthood.
She is an MD.
Yes. Okay. Dr. Deborah Nucatola, Senior Director of Medical Services, responsible for overseeing the abortion practice at all of the different Planned Parenthood locations nationwide, responsible for training new Planned Parenthood abortion doctors, responsible for writing the Planned Parenthood Medical Manual of Standards and Guidelines, which is basically the handbook for all of the clinics. And she also does abortions herself up to 6 months in Los Angeles and in New York.
So this is something where they are admitting sales. And, when we look back in this country on that long history of slavery, we look back at it with shame, because it went against our beliefs. The papacy had condemned the slave trade immediately when it began in 1437. And consistently condemned it over the centuries. And in this country, this land of the free, where people were not free, usually because they were captured in Africa and sold by Africans to Europeans who participated. That's shameful. It's a shameful past. This goes far beyond it. And this is even worse than the slave trade, because they're killing these children. And that just, it incredibly breaks my heart to hear such a thing. What did you sense anything in them of remorse or embarrassment or anything like that at all?
Certainly. So, and you're right that the whole baby parts issue is a new modern day slave trade, because again, human beings are being bought and sold as commodities. And definitely, you know, probably the thing that was the most surprising to me personally during the 2.5 years that I was doing undercover work and interacting and having, you know, quality time with lots and lots of abortion doctors, some of whom did abortions all the way up to 9 months, is precisely how many of them were actually really conflicted by what they do. And you know, there's maybe I'd say 20% of them that seem really far gone. And it's really kind of scary when you're talking to them. But the rest of them, and those really were not the Planned Parenthood ones, believe it or not, for the most part. The Planned Parenthood abortion doctors that I met and that I've interacted with tended to be the ones that were the most educated, the most well-to-do, and the most conflicted about the work that they were doing, because they saw the most clearly, I mean, all of them really see pretty clearly and undeniably that they're killing people. They know that they're killing, and they know that it's violent, and these aren't just my own words, these are their own words as well. They've written essays about it, they give speeches about it, and some of them can't stop talking about it, because that's the only defense mechanism that they have left, is a really intense intellectualization of, you know, why am I killing, and is there some other meaning to it, and can I make it okay somehow? That's again and again and again, that was a conflict that we encountered, that abortion doctors themselves carry with them as a burden, and I didn't expect to see it that starkly.
I'm so glad that you say that. I'm so glad. This is something that indicates that natural law is operative within the abortionists. Some may have shut down any reflection, but because there are a good-sized majority, a big majority, who feel this conflict, knowing that what they do is wrong. This is an indication for all of us believers to pray for them, to pray to their guardian angels, to move them towards the light and life that come from God, and that our intercession for the abortionist, not for revenge or any such thing, not to hate them or be simply, and we're disgusted by what happens, but we choose to love them as we love the babies because of that solidarity with their humanity too, and it's still alive if they feel guilt. Let us pray for them to have a conversion to Jesus Christ, who is the resurrection and the life. Jesus Christ, who is the way, the truth, and the life. And as we pray for that, not only will we be strengthened in our own humanity and Christian life, but I am positive many of them will also convert. I want to give you some information called, you can go to centerformedicalprogress.org. That's centerformedicalprogress.org. You can email them by writing to info@centerformedicalprogress.org. We're going to take a break. We'll be back, and we have some questions that we'd love to ask our guests, so please stay with us. Thank you very much, and welcome back. We're with David Daleiden from the Center for Medical Progress, who made a number of undercover videos exposing Planned Parenthood's organizations and the sub-organizations as buying and selling, or by actually selling the parts of babies. How many videos were there altogether that you put out?
Definitely. So we've done a total of 11 major video releases so far.
And how many hours altogether did you, because I know some of them were put, in the media, but some are online. About how many hours is it?
I think there's probably about 30 hours out right now. That's out of a total of maybe 300 hours, so there's still a lot of video left to go.
Okay. All right, so let's take a question from our studios. Ma'am, where are you from?
Here in the Birmingham area.
Good to have you, and what's your question?
I'm wondering what it was like for you, David, and the others undercover personally. How conflicted you felt, or did you ever almost lose your composure by something that was said? Did you feel like you needed to take a shower afterwards?
Definitely. There's definitely sometimes moments that are kind of like that. I think that everybody has a different tolerance level for it. And you go into the character and you do your job for one day. Sometimes it's just for a lunch meeting. Sometimes you're doing it at a conference for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. After 4 days, that was kind of my tolerance limit, and after that, I was like, "Get me out of here." But overall, it's the sort of thing that you have to go into it ultimately with an intention of great love for the children and their families that you're trying to save from the violence of abortion, love for the people who are deforming their own souls by practicing the killing of abortion and the trafficking of baby parts. And if you do it for those reasons, I think it makes it a lot easier. It makes it a lot easier on yourself. It makes the whole process work more effectively. And one of the pieces of advice that I carried with me throughout the whole project came from a very wise spiritual director who said to go into something like that first praying for forgiveness for the abortion industry and forgiveness for the abortion workers and for the doctors. Number 2, to pray for any curses to be turned into blessings. And number 3, for those to return upon the sender 3 times. And especially that first part of praying for forgiveness for the enemy and praying for forgiveness for those who would kill unborn children. I think that forms the entire intention of what you're doing in a way more solid way and gives you a really stable foundation that lets you do things that otherwise would be almost impossibly difficult. So
I think this is a very key element. I didn't know that you had done that when I said what I did, but it's just what Christians do. And our goal is not about politics or economics. We're concerned about the souls of these children and their parents and the doctors and nurses and others involved in this and the people who buy and sell. It's concern and love for them and their souls that is at stake here. And that's key. I'm glad to hear that your spiritual director guided you in that way. It sounds like a good spiritual director. Hang on to her.
Thank you.
Ma'am, where are you from?
Hi, I'm from Birmingham.
Birmingham, and your question?
I wanted to ask you, Planned Parenthood's response to the videos seems to be that they have been heavily edited or that they've been doctored in some way. And I was just wondering what your response to that is, and have you been able to, make that public, your response to that?
Thank you. Good question.
Certainly. So you're right that Planned Parenthood and their allies in the mainstream media and their political cronies have been trying to use the word edited as a synonym for doctored. But the videos that CMP's produced and that we present, they're certainly no more edited than any news report that you would watch on any mainstream news channel. And in fact, we've been far more transparent than any other news organization. CNN, ABC, CBS, Fox, MSNBC, any of them. We've been far more transparent than any of them in the way that we present the full footage of the conversations that we had with our interview subjects in addition to the shorter summary versions of just the highlights. I don't think that there's any other news organizations out there that do that, but that's something that's something that we've made a point to do every time.
And that's it's good for folks to understand. You edit out, just picking up glasses of water and and shoveling food around it, and you want to focus on that element, but you've made known any and all of the footage, even the parts that would be of no particular interest. But
that's correct. I mean, when you have a 3-hour-long business lunch meeting with someone, I mean, certainly for someone who's maybe kind of a nerd like me, or is really into the insider baseball, or someone who's really concerned about the evidentiary kind of forensic value of the data, you might want to spend the full 3 hours going through it. So we make that available. But at the same time, most people, they just want the highlights. Give me the bottom line. What happened?
Right.
Why should I even care about it? So that's why we have the 5 or 10 minute long summary versions. Which are even themselves a little longer than most news reports. So,
but you have given all the raw footage to Congress. Is that
that's
not
correct.
true?
Yeah.
So that when Congress does its investigation, they are not looking at the edited clips. They have all of the video completely at their disposal.
Exactly. They're seeing what I saw.
So if they do, and I believe they're doing investigations on this,
That's correct? Yeah.
So they will not be limited to some clips, but they will have absolutely every minute available for them to look at.
That's correct. And also, God willing, they won't be limited to Planned Parenthood's talking points either, and they'll get to see Planned Parenthood's unedited financial data and contracts with companies like STEM Express and find out exactly how much money has flowed into them in exchange for baby parts over the past 5 years.
Well, that would be fair.
Wouldn't it be fair?
Yeah.
I think so.
Let's see how likely. All right, we have a question also. Ma'am, where are you from?
I'm from Irondale.
Irondale, good to have you here. And your question?
Yes, David, Planned Parenthood recently announced that they were filing a lawsuit against you, and I'm wondering if you can tell us where it stands and where would this lawsuit be held and so on.
Sure. So it's still a pretty recent lawsuit that was just announced just pretty recently, and it looks like it may actually it may be something that kind of takes a long time to really get going. But I think it's interesting that in this very kind of high octane, dramatic, really very anti-free speech lawsuit as well, Planned Parenthood and their attorneys really threw everything but the kitchen sink at me and my other investigators and at the Center for Medical Progress, except the one claim that they did not file suit for was defamation, or libel or slander or even false light, a similar claim like that. So they're upset at how we went about getting the footage, and they're angry that they got taken in by an undercover sting, and they're upset at the exposure and all of that. But they're still not suing for defamation, because they can't say in any way that what we have said about them and what we've exposed about them isn't the truth.
Well, one of the things that has struck me, because last year I followed it. Every week it would break my heart to see another video, but I never heard you calling them nasty names, or you just laid out the conversations as they were videotaped. You couldn't alter, if it was say just audio, then maybe he altered or something, but the video is right there. It's very clear.
They alter their abortion methods to get higher quality baby parts far more than I would ever alter a video in order to present the truth about what they're doing.
And you don't, attack their character in terms of any, crazy talk. You just lay out the data that you collected, and that's basically it.
Correct.
All right. And this is a norm for anything that you would do if you're investigating what could be a crime. I mean, allegedly it could be a crime if, again, the standards of Roe v. Wade are applied, and if the information they said is true, there could be criminal issues, which is why Congress is investigating.
Totally, and there was a couple years ago, there were several lawsuits brought against undercover journalists and citizen journalists who were working in an animal rights activist context, PETA, going into factory farms and stuff like that. And the court rulings have been very clear coming out of those lawsuits in favor of the citizen journalists that undercover journalism is a protected First Amendment activity under our Constitution of the United States. And so that's why I say that this latest round of litigation from Planned Parenthood, ultimately, I think it's frivolous, and I don't think it's going to come to anything, because at the end of this is very it's a very anti-free speech and anti-citizen journalism action for them to bring, and I don't think that that's going to hold water under more careful scrutiny.
And I think that's important, that the same techniques were used to prevent abuse to animals, and therefore the same techniques can be used to prevent what may be abuse of children, legal abuse.
Exactly.
And and again, if the allegations are true, then it would be the illegal sale. Is not the sale of human body parts against the law?
Correct. No one is supposed to be making money off of human body parts, adult, fetal, whatever. No one is supposed to be making money and turning a profit on selling human body parts.
So if somebody wants to donate their kidney, they can't say, "I'll give you a kidney for $500,000 or something," or even for $5.
Right. Or even $5, exactly. No one is supposed to be making money off of a human organ or human body part or human tissue donation.
Because that was a big concern. In some countries, selling human body parts is legal. You can, and as a result, and I remember reading about some of the work of Mother Teresa and her sisters in a book some years ago. One of the problems was the very poor were being waylaid and had their body parts cut out, while they're alive. They're being murdered. And some people were harvesting their body parts and selling them. So that was for adults. And, it was appalling to hear about that. But, this is true of children, too. And in our country, it's illegal. Take another question from our studio audience. Sir, where are you from?
I'm from the Birmingham area.
Okay, and your question?
David, thank you for everything you've done in bringing this to light. My question to you is, you've now exposed Planned Parenthood. I'd imagine they're probably going to make some adjustments internally to not be so exposed again. I'm curious on what you and your organization are doing to still continue your work.
Sure. Well, I don't actually know that Planned Parenthood isn't. I would call it that they're making adjustments right now. They're still really in free fall from the facts about their baby parts business and the actual way that they conduct their abortion practice coming out. They're still in free fall for that. That's in part why they were desperate enough to file the lawsuit and open themselves up to the full legal scrutiny of the court system by doing so. And they've really, I feel like for the past 6 months, they still don't really have a consistent message addressing and responding to the information that's come to light. Their only hope is to try to bury the videos, and in the meantime, they're in internal disarray because of it. But as far as what is coming next for myself and for CMP, I mean, we still have a large body of evidence that we're working on producing into a format that can be continue to present to the public. There's videos that we're still working on and that will continue to be released. There will ultimately be a full written report on the entire investigation, documenting everything, laying it all out in a very in-depth format that other investigators can use and that other interested people can use. And really, I mean, 2016, this year is going to be a historic watershed moment for abortion in America and for how we treat unborn children in our country. We've got, as you mentioned, the ongoing congressional investigations, including a special select committee of Congress that has full subpoena power and is looking just at the baby parts trafficking issue for the next year, all the way through December 2016. We've got multiple state criminal investigations that are still ongoing into Planned Parenthood's conduct in the whole baby parts issue. And we've got abortion laws going before the Supreme Court again, which may very well test the Roe v. Wade standards again and find them wanting. And then there's ultimately going to be the opportunity that we might get a pro-life president in November of 2016. So this is truly an incredible moment, I think.
And not only a pro-life president, we have to be concerned about pro-life representatives, pro-life senators. When the mayor of Irondale was going around asking for votes, my question to the candidates was, what is your stand on life? We don't want just to have the president pro-life. We need to look for our city and county officials, our state officials, and all representatives as well as the president to be pro-life. And this is something that then we want to see, that people who make the decisions in court are not just pro-life, but apply common sense. The decisions, when you look at the history from the Griswold decision, which was put forward by Planned Parenthood, all the way through more recent decisions such as the Casey, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, in which a father has no say at all as to whether his child lives, whether he's married or not married to the mother of the child. He has no concern. When you can have justices separate the role of a father from the life of the child of which he's the father, and that he has no input, this is gone way, way too far into such a radical individualism that whatever affects an individual and has no impact on anybody else except me. This is the kind of philosophy that goes to Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the French philosopher, and not to the common law of our English heritage. That's the basis of our law, nor does it go to natural law in any way that goes back to the philosophers way before Christ. We're not talking about imposing Christian or Jewish morality. This is natural law morality. And this is something that we all should study, what goes on in the courts and in all the politicians. We might be focused on our pocketbook when we vote. And just as we would ask the person that was speaking with you in the interview, what good would it be to have all the Lamborghinis in the world, but lose your immortal soul? What good would it do us to have the best economy in the world, but lose our souls as a result? Because we don't care for the souls of the most weak people in our country, the unborn. These are very important issues for all of us in this year, so that would be a watershed, as you say. Besides, one question, I don't know if you have any insight on this at all, but the Congress seems to have trouble not funding with our taxpayer money, Planned Parenthood. Do you have any insight into why they have trouble to not give them? We're not defunding them. We're just not giving them the tax dollars.
Right. Well, and not just defunding, but also reassigning those same tax dollars to actual mainstream medical organizations and mainstream healthcare providers that provide a more comprehensive suite of services than does Planned Parenthood as well.
For the poor.
Exactly, for the poor, regardless of ability to pay, which Planned Parenthood doesn't do either. Most of their services, there's still going to be a charge, but the FQH, the federally qualified health centers, regardless of your ability to pay, will take care of you. But I mean, frankly, I think that it's a victory recently that we just saw for the very first time in history a bill to reassign taxpayer money away from Planned Parenthood actually made it to the president's desk. And the only reason that defunding effort was not successful and didn't become law was because the president didn't sign it. The president vetoed it. Okay. So I don't put the blame on the Congress. Okay. I think that Congress is just one co-equal branch of government. At the end of the day, that's why I refer to the presidential election as a piece of that watershed moment for abortion and for unborn children in our country this year, because the buck is going to stop there.
Just as it's the same man who would not vote to protect the life of born children.
And who argued against it on the Senate floor.
Yep. Well, David, this has been a real privilege to have you here.
It's a privilege to be on.
And I suspect that you're not going to stop doing this good work. If there's some other time that we can, help inform our audience about more, we'd love to have you back. And, we can bring you, David, and all the other folks that come here to inform us because of you. You make it possible. We want to keep you in between the gas and electric bill so we can have great guests who inform us of so many important things, and then make us into a force that helps our democracy, this democratic republic, to be a great, great country, spiritually and morally, as well as in all other aspects of culture. May Almighty God bless you and keep you and cause His face to shine upon you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. God bless you and thank you.